friends, welcome back to Astrology with Ninad. The month of December 2023 is finally here, and in this video, I am going to discuss the monthly horoscope prediction for all the 12 signs of the zodiac. My predictions are mainly based on your moon or rising sign per Vedic astrology. Traditionally, monthly Gochar predictions are primarily seen from the moon sign, which is known as the Chandra Rashi. But in some cases, the prediction for some individuals might be more relevant from their rising or ascendant sign, which is also known as the Lagna Rashi. So, my advice would be to watch the predictions from both your moon and rising sign, and over some time you will be able to exactly tell which sign you resonate most with. I have posted the timestamps in the description box below for your convenience, so you can click on the time that corresponds to your moon and rising sign and watch accordingly. So without any further delay, let's take a look at how this month, this final month of 2023 is going to turn out for all the 12 signs, starting from Aries all the way up to Pisces. Aries Mesha Rashi friends, before we jump into the predictions and discuss the major life areas, let us first take a look at the position of all the planets in this month. Saturn will be placed in its own Mool Trikona sign Aquarius in your 11th house. Rahu will be placed in your 12th house in the sign of Pisces. Rahu is also known as the north node of the moon. Directly opposite will be Ketu, the south node of the moon, placed in your 6th house in the sign of Virgo. Jupiter will be placed in your ascendant itself in the 1st house in the sign of Aries. Directly opposite in your 7th house will be placed Venus in its own Mool Trikona sign Libra for 3 weeks of the month, but in the last week, Venus will transit to your 8th house in the sign of Scorpio. Mars, which rules your ascendant, which rules your sign, for the most part of the month will be placed in your 8th house in its own sign of Scorpio, along with Sun, the king of planets, which for the first 2 weeks will be placed in your 8th house, but in the last 2 weeks it will transit to your 9th house, to your Bhagyastan in the sign of Sagittarius, and will be conjunct with Mercury, for who will be placed there for almost throughout the month, but in the last 5 days Mercury will move back to your 8th house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the important placement and positioning of the planets throughout the month. Now let's talk about the major areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, the time is looking good for the most part, as long as you stay focused on your job duties and tasks, avoid office politics, gossips, unnecessary arguments and disputes, then you will make decent progress at your workplace. Why I say that it might not be exceptional is because your career lord Saturn, although it is placed in the Labhastan, in your 11th house of gains, desires, and wish fulfillment, and that too in its Mool Trikona, a very auspicious placement, it is still aspected by Mars. So, as we all know, Saturn and Mars are not really good friends in Vedic astrology. Especially Saturn considers Mars as a strong enemy planet. So, there is some pressure on your career lord, which will naturally translate to maybe some added work pressure in your day-to-day job, some more responsibilities. So just go with the flow, take it with a positive attitude, and that way you will do just fine. If we talk about the business area, then I will say the first 3 weeks are looking excellent for those people thinking of starting a new business like a startup, especially in the field of arts, entertainment, beauty, modeling, film industry, because Venus rules your business house and it is strongly placed in its Mool Trikona for the first 3 weeks. Even if you are in a business partnership, you will get a lot of cooperation from your business partners, and it will be a good time to think of your long term business strategies and implementation. But in the last week, your seventh lord will transit to the eighth house. So, some caution needs to be maintained, and you should avoid indulging in any risky business activities in the last week because Venus will transit your Dustana Stan, which is the eighth house. It is the most malefic Trikstan. So, any risky activities connected to business should be curbed. So, if we move on to health, in terms of health area, caution needs to be maintained all month long. Try not to ignore any acute or chronic health issues if something was to bother you. Because your sixth lord, Mercury, will be in retrograde moment and will be transiting back to the eighth house towards the end of the month, where even your Lagnesh, your ascendant lord, is placed. And it is also aspected by Saturn. From the 11th house, Shani Dev is looking at Mangal. So naturally, you have to make sure that you take good care of your health, you eat good, healthy, home cooked food, do regular exercise, yoga, meditation, pranayam, which will keep your energies channeled in a positive direction. If we talk about primary education, for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, the time is looking decent, and as long as you put in the hard work and effort, you will make good academic progress. If we talk about higher education, for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, the time is looking excellent. It is going to be an amazing period for you to make remarkable progress in your field of study because there is going to be a Budh Aditya Yoga, especially in your last 2 weeks in the ninth house, and Jupiter will also be aspecting its own ninth house, which is also your Bhagyastan. So, your destiny will also support you in higher education related matters. If we talk about finance, then overall your financial situation is looking moderate. It's not looking excellent, nor is it looking bad. It is looking decent. As long as you use good money management skills, you will be able to save your money, grow your money, and accumulate good wealth in this coming month. Because your Labhesh Saturn is being aspected by Mangal, but then Mangal, your ascendant lord, is also directly aspecting your Dhanastan. So naturally, the wealth houses are activated, but good money management skills do need to be put in play so that unnecessary expenses and unnecessary spending is controlled. If we talk about traveling, such as short distance traveling, then the time is looking excellent, especially for the first 26 days. Short distance traveling is largely supported, but in the last 5 days of the month, if you can avoid going on short distance traveling, then it will be to your advantage. If we talk about long distance travel, journey, and vacation, the time is looking good throughout the month and no concerns are foreseen. If we talk about love life, then the first 2 weeks are not looking good for love and romance area. If you are single, try to be a bit more patient, because in the last 2 weeks, after December 16, your fifth lord, Sun, will transit to the ninth house, to the Bhagyasthan, where it will be aspected by Devguru Brihaspati. And also, Jupiter is aspecting your fifth house. So, the time will get better as the month progresses, and it can open up some doors of opportunity for single people to meet compatible partners and possibly get into a relationship. Just do not take any decision in haste, because Saturn is also aspecting your fifth house. So think twice before making any important decision connected to the love and romance area. If you're already in a relationship and if things are not going that smooth, try to be a bit more patient, as the last 2 weeks can definitely help to rebuild your trust, understanding, and harmony and peace in your relationship with your partner. If we talk about marriage and married life, for those people already married, the time is looking good for the most part of the month, especially the first 3 weeks. It is looking quite favorable. You can spend a lot of good moments with your spouse. Just in the last week, try not to get into unnecessary arguments, disputes with your spouse, or that could lead to some issues, because your seventh lord will transit to the eighth house, where it will be in conjunction with Mars, and it will also be aspected by Saturn. If you are single and hoping to get married this month, then if you are running also a very good Mahadasha, then there are good chances you might be able to find the right person and even get married. Or if you're already in the process, then marriage can take place this month, especially in the first 3 weeks, because your seventh lord Venus is itself activating the marriage house, along with the beautiful aspect of Jupiter on the seventh house. So naturally, marriage related matters are strongly supported in the first 3 weeks. But in the last week of the month, try not to get into a marriage if possible, because your seventh lord will be placed in the eighth house. So I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Aries Mesh Rasi friends. I thank you for watching and good luck. For my Taurus Vrushabha Rashi friends, before we jump into the predictions, let us first take a look at the position of planets in the month of December, and then we will focus on the major areas of life. Starting with Saturn, it will be placed in your 10th house in its own Mool Trikona sign Aquarius. Then we see that Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your 11th house in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be Ketu, which is the south node of the moon, placed in your 5th house in the sign of Virgo. Jupiter will be placed in your 12th house in the sign of Aries. Directly opposite will be the ruler of your sign Venus, being placed in your 6th house in its own sign of Libra. But in the last week, Venus will transit to your 7th house in the sign of Scorpio, where Mars, the ruler of Scorpio itself, will be placed there all month long, along with Sun, the king of planets, which for the first 2 weeks will be placed in your 7th house, but in the last 2 weeks it will transit to your 8th house in the sign of Sagittarius. That is where Mercury, the planet of communication, will be placed for the most part of the month, but in the last 5 days it will move back to your 7th house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the key placement and position of all the planets in the month of December. Now let's talk about the major areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, it is going to be a moderate month. It can be quite good if you stay focused and you put all your hard work and effort on your job tasks, duties, and projects. If you give it your 200%, then definitely you will get better results. Why I said a moderate month is because Your career area is ruled by Saturn, Shani Dev, and its arch enemy, its rival, Mars, the warrior planet, will be aspecting Saturn because its drishti, which is the aspect, will fall on the 10th house. So naturally, Saturn does not enjoy being aspected by Mars, which is its enemy planet. So naturally, there will be some added work pressure, some tension, some stress in your day to day job. But if you stay focused, you remain positive, you are not lethargic, you are motivated, then you will definitely be successful in your career area. Just avoid office politics, gossiping, engaging in unnecessary disputes or quarrels with your bosses or colleagues. And that way, your work life will be just smooth. If we talk about business, then the business area for those aspiring people thinking of starting a new business, or those people already running a business, the time is again looking moderate, I will say, because although the lord of your 7th house Mars is strongly placed in the 7th house itself, it is once again now aspected by Saturn. As I said before, Mars is aspecting Saturn, but then even Saturn is doing the same. From the 10th house, Saturn is also aspecting its enemy planet Mars, which falls on the 7th house. But still, the Lord of your 7th in the 7th house is quite an auspicious thing. So, as long as you do your proper due diligence, analysis, and research in your business activities before taking major business related decisions, you will be just fine. And you can certainly have a decent month in terms of business. If you're in a business partnership, then for the most part, you will get along with your business partner, but just try not to get into unnecessary arguments on trivial issues because those small issues can lead to bigger issues. So try to control those problems that might try to crop up at the early stage so that unexpected consequences do not take place. If we talk about health, then it is going to be a great month in terms of your health area as long as you take good care, you do regular exercise, yoga, meditation, spending time in the nature, taking walks, whatever ways you or techniques you use to keep yourself fit, that will be great because your 6th house is quite strong for the most part of the month. So I'm not seeing any major issues in the health area. If we talk about finance, then the time is looking quite good as well because now you have Rahu placed in your 11th house. Before it was in your Vyastan, but now it is in the Labhastan. Rahu's placement in the 11th is considered to be quite auspicious because it is a Upchaya Stan, it is a growth house. So it indicates a lot of inflow of money your way. But just try to save that money because your second lord, Mercury, is in the 8th house for most part of the month and it will also be in retrograde moment. So if you use good money management techniques and skills and you wisely save and invest your money, then you will have no problems in the finance area. If we talk about education, in terms of primary education, for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, the first 2 weeks are looking quite good for you to make good academic progress, but in the last 2 weeks, there will be some ups and downs in your studies. So make sure that you do not get distracted and stay focused on your studies so that you do well in your examinations. If we talk about higher education, for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, The time is looking moderate. You will really need to put in the hard work and effort, but then you will also reap the rewards for the same. If we talk about love life, in terms of those single people hoping to find someone, right, and get into a relationship, this is not an ideal month because your fifth lord will be placed in the eighth house. So if you can try to delay your search for a bit longer, then it will be in your favor. If you are already in a relationship, try not to get into unnecessary arguments, disputes, because that could lead to some problems in your relationship, as some ups and downs will be felt in this month of December. If we talk about marriage, for those single people hoping to get married, well, the time is looking quite good because your seventh house is now strongly activated by Mars itself, which rules your seventh bhava. But you have to remember it is being aspected by Saturn. So you will have to be the right judge of the person you are seeing and making sure that you are meant for each other, that you are compatible in many ways, and then only proceed for marriage. Because Saturn aspecting Mars is not a easy aspect. It is quite an intense aspect, right? So just make sure that other factors in your birth chart also support marriage related matters, whether it is running a good mahadasha, whether it is running Mars mahadasha, which rules your marriage house, or whether it's running Jupiter mahadasha or some auspicious Venus mahadasha, then it is better if your seventh lord is also very well placed in your natal chart. Because if you're running the Shani Mahadasha, for example, then you will have to be even more cautious because Shani's double effect will be felt on the marriage house and it is not a friendly aspect. If we talk about those people already married, then as long as they stay loyal, truthful, caring, and attentive towards their spouse, then they will enjoy a good, harmonious, and peaceful married life for the most part. Finally, if we talk about short distance travel, in terms of short distance travel journeys, I'm not seeing any major concerns. And in terms of long distance travel journey and vacation, the time is again looking quite good for the same. Just make sure that you do not speed and drive your vehicle and drive with caution. And if you embark on any very long distance journeys, then if you can take someone with you, maybe a good friend, a colleague, a family member, a spouse, then it will be better. Try not to embark alone on major long distance travel if possible. So I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Taurus Vrushabha Rashi friends. I thank you for watching and good luck. For my Gemini Mithun Rashi friends, before we jump into the predictions, let us first observe the important transits and position of all the planets in the month of December. Starting with Saturn, it will be strongly placed in your ninth house in its own sign, Aquarius. Then we see that Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your 10th house in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be Ketu, the south node of the moon, placed in the sign of Virgo in your 4th house. Then we see that Jupiter is going to be placed in your 11th house in the sign of Aries. Venus will be placed in your 5th house in its own sign of Libra, but in the last week it will transit to your 6th house in the sign of Scorpio, where it will be conjunct with Mars, which will be placed there all month long, and also Sun. But Sun will actually be placed in your 6th house for only the first 2 weeks. And in the last 2 weeks, it will transit to your 7th house in the sign of Sagittarius, where it will be in conjunction and create the Budh Aditya Yoga with the ruler of your sign, Mercury, because Mercury will be placed there for most part of the month, but in the last 5 days it will transit back to your 6th house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the important placements of the planets in the month of December. Now let's talk about the major areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, an excellent month for you, because finally Rahu has now moved to your 10th house. This is one of Rahu's favorite positions. And also the Guru Chandal Dosh is now completely over. So Rahu is placed in your 10th. You have the support of your Bhagyesh, which is Shani, being placed in your 9th house of destiny and luck factor. And your career lord, Jupiter, is placed in the Labhasthan, in the house of gains. So naturally, a very powerful month in terms of career for you to achieve tremendous growth, progress, and success, because even your 11th lord and your 6th lord Mars will be placed in the 6th house, which is connected to your daily work routine. So, a very powerful month for you to basically start really strategizing what you want to achieve in life in regards to your career, in regards to your profession. Whether this is the time you want to change to a different field altogether, or you want to change to a different company, you want a job transfer, because the planetary alignment is such that it is supporting you throughout everything, whether it is a job change that you desire, whether it is completely changing your field of work, whether it is applying for a promotion, salary increment, everything is looking quite positive. Of course, this is a part of the puzzle. Rest you will have to know by looking at your birth chart, the Mahadasha, Antardasha, that will give you the big picture. But just looking at this Gochar, it is looking fantastic, and the sky is the limit to how much you can achieve in your career, in your day to day job. If you don't have a job, I highly recommend keep applying and give lots of interviews, because there is a solid chance you can land a new job with a decent salary and benefits package. Your overall prestige, respect, authority in the society at your workplace will start to increase. Your leadership skills will start to shine, and your bosses will start to notice your hard work and give you the respect, credit, and recognition that you deserve. And you will start to get more respect, cooperation, support from your colleagues as well. If we talk about business, then excellent month. You are thinking of starting a new business like a startup, the time is looking quite good. There is a Budh Aditya Yoga happening in your 7th house. The ruler of the 7th, Jupiter, is placed in the 11th house, 5 places forward, and again it is aspecting the 7th house from the 11th, which falls on its own Mul Trikona Sagittarius, and there is no other affliction to the 7th house. So a beautiful month for people aspiring to start something new. Those already running a business, you will start to experience sudden profits, increase in revenues, increase in gains, decrease in expenses, decrease in losses, more cooperation from your business partners if you're running a business, more respect, more authority, more advantage over your competitors. You will be able to now defeat your competition, rise on top, and be the leader in the marketplace. So, overall, a fantastic time in terms of the business area. If we talk about health, then overall it will be a moderate month for you, mostly good, you can say, because your Lagnesh Mercury is aspecting your first house. Then your 6th lord is in the 6th house, but Saturn's aspect is also on the 6th house. So try not to ignore that aspect, because if you are especially running the Mahadasha of Shani, then you have to take some more caution in regards to your health, especially acute health issues. Try not to ignore those. But overall, if you maintain a good, healthy lifestyle, then I'm not seeing any major concerns in the health department. If we talk about finance, then the inflow of money is looking solid throughout the month. Your 11th lord is in the 6th house, which indicate possible gains, promotions, salary increment, bonuses from your day-to-day job. Even Jupiter is placed in your 11th house. Rahu, which was creating blockages previously, has now moved from the 11th house to the 10th. So it is going to be a free flow, and there is no more blockages that I'm seeing in terms of your inflow of wealth. So try to use good money management to save that money and grow your finances. If we talk about education, in terms of primary education, for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, the time is looking very auspicious for you to make excellent academic progress. If we talk about secondary education, for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, there will be some added pressure in terms of studies, examinations, presentations, but if you give it your best shot, if you put in the hard work and effort, you will reap the rewards. If we talk about love life, then one of the best months for you, the fifth lord Venus is in the fifth house itself. Jupiter is aspecting Venus as well. So, an excellent time for single people hoping to meet someone. Your luck will definitely shine, as love is definitely going to be in the air. If you're already in a relationship, the love is going to blossom, it's going to increase your passion, love, romance. You will spend a lot of memorable time with your partner. Just in the last week, try not to get into unnecessary arguments or disputes with your partner, or that could lead to some issues. But the first 3 weeks are looking fabulous. If we talk about marriage, in terms of those single people wanting to get married this month, it is looking amazing because Budh Aditya Yoga in your 7th house, Jupiter's aspect on your 7th house, and no further afflictions. If your natal birth chart also supports the same, then it can be an excellent time for single people to get married this month. If you're already married, you will experience increased bliss, harmony, peace, love, romance in your married life. And as long as you stay loyal, faithful, you're caring, loving, attentive towards your spouse, then it is going to be a very happy married life that you will experience. Finally, if we talk about travel, short distance travel is looking quite good this month, especially in the last 2 weeks. If we talk about long distance travel, journey, and vacation, that is also looking good as long as you drive your vehicle with caution. And if you go on very long distance journeys, make sure to do the proper planning, research before you embark on the same. So, overall, a great month for my Gemini Mithun Rashi friends. I thank you for watching and good luck. For my Cancer Karka Rashi friends, before we get into the predictions, let us first take a look at the position of planets in the month of December, and then we will focus on the major areas of life. Starting with Saturn, it will be placed in your 8th house in its own Mul Trikona, Aquarius. Then in the 9th house will be the north node of the moon, Rahu, in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be Ketu, the south node of the moon, placed in your 3rd house in the sign of Virgo. Then we see that Jupiter will be placed in your 10th house in the sign of Aries. Venus will be placed in your 4th house in the sign of Libra, which is its own Mul Trikona sign. But in the last week, Venus will transit to your 5th house in the sign of Scorpio and will be in conjunction with Mars, which is the planet that rules Scorpio, and will be placed there all month long. Sun for the first 2 weeks will be placed in your 5th house in the sign of Scorpio, but in the last 2 weeks it will transit to your 6th house in the sign of Sagittarius and will be in conjunction with Mercury. because Mercury for most part of the month will be placed in your 6th house in the sign of Sagittarius, but in the last 5 days it will move back to your 5th house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the key placement and position of planets throughout the month. Starting with career, it is going to be quite a good month for you because now the Guru Chandal Dosh is completely over and Jupiter is in complete control of your 10th house. It is strongly placed in your career house itself, and also your career lord Mars, which is also a Yoga Karaka planet for Cancer sign, is placed in the 5th house basically throughout the month in its own sign of Scorpio. So, an excellent time is indicated in the career area for you to achieve good growth and progress with your hard work and effort. Just avoid taking any major hasty decision when it comes to changing jobs, applying for promotion, applying for a job transfer, because you cannot ignore that Saturn is still aspecting your 10th house, which is a debilitated aspect. So, with careful planning, research, analysis, then only make any major career related decision. But still, the time is now looking much better going forward when it comes to your job and profession. If we talk about business, it is not a good month for you to start a new business, to get into new business partnerships. If you are already running a business, try to keep your expenses in control. Try not to take major business financial loans and basically curb any kind of risky business activities because your 7th lord is in the 8th house and it is also being aspected by Mars, because Saturn and Mars are basically not the friendliest of planets with each other. Especially Saturn considers Mars as an enemy planet. So Mars aspecting your 7th lord is not ideal for business related activities. So they should be done with utmost caution. If we talk about health, then the time is looking quite good for you in terms of health area. You will feel quite fresh. You will regain your energy levels. If the previous month has not been that good for you, then this month you will get a lot of energy. You will feel relaxed. Your vitality will increase. You will feel more robust, and you will also have increased stamina because there is a Budh Aditya Yoga in your 6th house, and Jupiter, which controls your 6th house, is also aspecting your 6th house as well, and there are no further afflictions to it. So, an excellent time in terms of your health area. If we talk about finance, then in terms of the money flow, the time is looking quite good because your 11th lord is going to be placed in its own Mul Trikona sign, Libra. Your Dhanastan Swami sun will also be placed quite well throughout the month. So just make sure that you use your money wisely. You do not loan money to strangers. You make good investments, and that way you will accumulate good wealth and grow your bank balance and savings. If we talk about education, in terms of primary education, for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, the time is looking quite good for you to make remarkable academic progress. In terms of higher education, for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, the time is actually looking good, especially for those students who want to take admission to a college in a foreign land, because Rahu is now placed in the 9th house, which can indicate some long distance travel for higher education purposes to a foreign country. But still, do not avoid any sort of distractions because Rahu is a planet of illusion, Maya, deception. So try to stay very focused on your academics, and that way you will be able to still make good progress. If we talk about love life, then the time can be quite good for single people to find someone, because your fifth lord is in the fifth house. But still, remember, Saturn is aspecting the fifth house as well, without the protective aspect of Jupiter. So before you jump into a new relationship, try to make sure to know that person well, so that your expectations match reality. If we talk about those couples who are already in a relationship, the time is looking quite good. There will be, intense love, passion, romance in your relationship. Any missing spark will be reignited, but just avoid getting into unnecessary arguments, disputes, or that could cause a sudden break in the relationship as well. If we talk about marriage, so for single people hoping to get married, the time is not looking ideal. So if you can delay that, it will be in your favor, as your seventh lord is in the eighth house and being aspected by Mangal. So even for married couples, make sure that you are loyal, faithful, caring, loving, attentive towards your spouse and their needs. Make sure that you find the right balance, between compromise and not being adamant on one thing. Picking, basically arguing or quarreling on small trivial issues can damage the relationship, can bring lots of ups and downs in your relationship, in your married life. So just make sure that you do not fall in that trap. If we talk about travel, short distance travel, journey, and vacation, it is looking okay as long as you do the proper planning. It should be fine. In terms of long distance travel, journey, and vacation, the time is looking good, especially if you're running a very favorable Mahadasha, Antardasha, and your ninth lord is well placed in your chart. Then even relocating to a foreign land, for, as I said before, for pursuing higher education, for just enjoyment, vacation, leisure, going on a long cruise, all this can be supported to a great extent. So I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Cancer Karka Rashi friends. I thank you for watching and good luck. For my Leo Simha Rashi friends, before we get into the prediction part, let's first take a look at the position of planets in the month of December, and then we will discuss the major areas of life. Starting with Saturn, it will be placed in your 7th house in its own Mool Trikona, Aquarius. Then we see that Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your 8th house in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be Ketu, the south node of the moon, placed in your 2nd house in the sign of Virgo. Jupiter will be placed in your 9th house in the sign of Aries. Directly opposite will be Venus in your 3rd house, placed in its own Mool Trikona, Libra, for the first 3 weeks. But in the last week, Venus will transit to your 4th house in the sign of Scorpio and will be in conjunction with Mars. Because Mars, which rules Scorpio, will be placed there all month long in your 4th house. Sun, the king of planets, which rules your sign as well, will be placed for the first 2 weeks in your 4th house in the sign of Scorpio, but in the last 2 weeks it will transit to your 5th house in the sign of Sagittarius and will be in conjunction with Mercury. Because Mercury, for the first 24 days, I believe, will be placed in your 5th house, but in the last 4-5 days, it will move back to your 4th house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the key placement and position of all the planets in the month of December. Now let's discuss the major areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, the time is looking quite good because your career lord Venus will be strongly placed in its own Mool Trikona Libra for the most part of the month. Even in the last week, when it transits to the fourth house, it will directly aspect its own 10th house of career, which means a lot of good growth, progress, and success can be achieved at the workplace with your hard work, effort, and parakram. Because Venus is placed in the third house, which is known as the house of parakram, which basically means self effort, hard work, determination, courage, bravery, basically not backing out or not backing down from anything that you desire or want in your career, really working hard towards achieving your goal. And then you will have the support of your destiny as well due to Jupiter being placed there. So give it your best shot because this month is looking quite good in your career. Just try not to get into unnecessary arguments or disputes or quarrels with your colleagues or upper management because that can cause issue. As Venus is placed 6 places forward from the 10th house that it rules. So some caution needs to be maintained in that area. But if you stay focused on your project, on your duties, you keep working hard, give it your 200% best effort, then you will reap the rewards. If we talk about business, then overall, the time for business activities, whether you are running your own business, whether you are in a business partnership, it is looking mediocre because although Saturn is placed strongly in your seventh house in its Mool Trikona, it is being aspected by the enemy planet Mars. So naturally, some level of caution needs to be maintained. Try not to take any major risky financial business decisions. Try not to get into business expansion this month. Try not to get into new business partnerships. If you're already in a business partnership, make sure that you cooperate with your business partner. Make sure that you are both aligned on your long term business goals, visions, objectives, and that everything is transparent between you and your business partner. If we talk about health, then overall it will again be a mediocre month depending especially on the Mahadasha you are running. For example, if you are running the Saturn Mahadasha, then the health area is a bit more sensitive because your sixth lord Saturn is in the seventh house and aspecting your ascendant, your first house itself. So naturally, it indicates that some acute health issues could be bothersome. But if you're running, for example, a good Mahadasha like Jupiter or Sun Mahadasha, then the time will be quite better and health issues won't bother you as much. But, anyways, you still need to take good care of your health, eat good food, exercise, do yoga, meditation, which will try to maintain your health in a much positive direction. If we talk about finance, then overall the financial area is looking quite good throughout the month as long as you do proper investments, you use good money management techniques, and that way you will get good inflow of money because especially your past speculative investments could reap yields or returns around this time due to the Budh Aditya Yoga being created in your fifth house and Jupiter's aspect on the fifth house as well. So your past investments like in the stock market for example can possibly pay off, of course depending on your Mahadasha, Antardasha, position of certain planets in your natal chart will give the full picture. But just looking at the Gochar, it is looking quite good in terms of the financial flow. If we talk about education, in terms of primary education, for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, the time is looking good. As long as you put in the hard work and effort, you will do well in your academics. If we talk about higher education, such as those students pursuing master's or PhD program, the time is looking excellent and your bhagya destiny will support you to a great extent and you will make very good, remarkable progress in your field of study. If we talk about love, love life, and the romance area, it is looking very auspicious throughout the month. An amazing time for single people hoping to find someone. The luck can certainly favor them now. There is a high chance you could come across a compatible person and get into a relationship due to the Budh Aditya Yoga in your fifth house and Jupiter's aspect on your fifth house as well. And it is looking a blissful time for couples who are in a relationship. Your love, romance, bonding, understanding will be very solid throughout the month. If we talk about marriage, for those single people hoping to get married, it can be a good month depending on certain factors, such as if you are running a good Mahadasha, Antardasha, if your seventh lord is well placed in your chart. Certain factors need to be analyzed, but looking at the Gochar, it is a decent time as long as you are a good judge of the person that you are going to end up with. You know that you are very compatible, then it could be a good time to possibly get married. But do not rush into anything because Mars is aspecting your seventh house. So just try not to rush into anything. Take a slow and steady decision. If you are already married, then you will experience good harmony, peace, and stability for the most part. Just avoid unnecessary arguments and disputes, and your married life should remain stable and smooth for the most part of the month. Finally, if we talk about travel, in terms of short distance travel journeys, the time is looking excellent throughout the month. And in terms of long distance travel journey and vacation, again, the time is looking quite good as long as you drive your vehicle with caution. And if you need to travel internationally, then make sure to do the proper planning research before you embark on the journey. So overall, a decent month for my Leo Simha Rashi friends. I wish you all the very best and thank you for watching. For my Virgo Kanya Rashi friends, let us first take a look at the position of planets in the month of December, and then we will talk about the major areas of life. Starting with Saturn, it will be placed in your 6th house in its own Mool Trikona, Aquarius. Then we see that Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your 7th house in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be Ketu, the south node of the moon, placed in your 1st house itself. Jupiter will be placed in your 8th house in the sign of Aries. Then we see that directly opposite to Jupiter, Venus will be placed in your 2nd house in its own sign of Libra for the first 3 weeks. Because in the last week, it will transit to your 3rd house in the sign of Scorpio and will be in conjunction with Mars, which will be placed there for the entire month basically. Sun for the first 2 weeks will be placed in your 3rd house, but in the last 2 weeks, on the 16th, I believe it will transit to the 4th house in the sign of Sagittarius and will be in conjunction with the ruler of your sign, Mercury. Because Mercury will be placed there for most part of the month. In the last 5 days, I believe it will transit back to the 3rd house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the key placement and position of planets in the month of December. Now let's discuss the major areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, your career lord Mercury, which also rules your ascendant, your Lagna, will be quite well placed and supportive for your career aspirations, goals and objectives, because it will be aspecting your career house itself along with good friend Sun. Especially in the last 2 weeks, there will be the Budh Aditya Yoga. So it will be a great month for you to achieve good growth, progress and success at the workplace. But still remember, Mercury will be in a retrograde moment, and in the last 5 days or so, it will move back to the 3rd house. So avoid making any sudden hasty decisions connected to your career, whether it is changing your job, applying for interviews, applying for a bonus, promotion, salary increment, job transfer. Try not to do that, especially in the last week of the month. But the first 3 weeks are looking quite solid for you to make a mark in your career. If you are thinking of taking on more projects, more responsibilities, you will have good support of the planets to make sure that you do well and achieve your task and duties and complete everything in a timely manner. So make the best use of it. Overall, it is a good time for even those unemployed people looking for a new job, especially the first 3 weeks are quite supportive. So give tons of interviews because there is a good chance you can get a new job opportunity. If we talk about business, so whether you are running your own business, you are in a business partnership, you are thinking of starting a new business, be very cautious this month because your seventh lord Guru is in the eighth house and Rahu is now in your seventh house. And as we all know, Rahu is a planet of Maya, deception, illusion. So it can sometimes cause you to taking the wrong decisions. So if you are, running a very good Mahadasha, Antardasha, your seventh lord is very well placed in your natal chart, then maybe the situation could be slightly positive. But just looking at this Gochar transit, you have to be very careful in terms of your business activities. Go with the status quo. Do not take major financial business loans. Avoid getting into new business partnerships. If you're already in a business partnership, try not to get into unnecessary arguments or disputes with your business partner, as that could lead to even a possible break in the business partnership. And make sure that you know exactly who you are working with. If you are self employed, you are running your own business, you have employed some people, make sure to, get to know them well. And if you're planning on hiring new people, make sure the interview process is very well thought out and that you attend it yourself to know who you are getting on board. If we talk about health, then overall the health area will be fine for the most part. It's looking good as long as you take good care of your health. Do not neglect any acute health issues. Do regular exercise, eat good healthy home cooked food, do yoga, meditation. All this will help to keep your energies channeled in a positive direction. If we talk about finance, then overall the time is looking quite good, especially for the first 3 weeks. You will experience good growth in your savings, wealth accumulation, financial stability will be felt more going forward in this month. Just in the last month, avoid any sort of taking on too much loans or anything like that. But if you use good money management techniques, then you will be able to grow your bank balance this month. If we talk about education, primary education for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, the time is looking excellent and you will make good academic progress. If we talk about secondary education for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, again the time is looking quite good because your ninth lord is in its own Mool Trikona sign. So you can make remarkable academic progress as long as you put in the hard work and effort and you do not succumb to any distractions or temptations. If we talk about love life, in terms of love and romance area for those single people hoping to find someone, this is not an ideal month because your fifth lord is in the sixth house and being aspected by Mars. So try to be a bit more patient and wait for a more suitable time. If you're already in a relationship, try not to get into unnecessary arguments or disputes or quarrels because Saturn is placed in the sixth house, which is connected to lawsuit litigations, end of a relationship type scenario, and especially even because Mars is aspecting your fifth lord. So, be very cautious in your relationship and just be very loving, caring, attentive towards your partner so that your bonding and understanding in the relationship remains intact. If we talk about marriage, for those single people hoping to get married, well, Rahu's presence in your seventh house can bring opportunities, but you will need to be the best judge of the same, of whether those opportunities, those people are right for you, whether an individual is compatible with you for marriage or not. You will need to be the best judge of that. But just looking at the Gochar transit, um, Rahu being placed in the seventh, it being a planet of Maya illusion, can sometimes lead you to taking the wrong decision. So you will need to be alert and on guard, um, in terms of who you are interacting with and getting to know. Because sometimes, Rahu being placed there, it can basically show a very flowery picture, but in the end, it can be a mirage. So sometimes expectations might not match actual reality. If we talk about married couples, again, be very attentive, loyal, honest, caring, faithful towards your spouse, so that the relationship is maintained in a harmonious and peaceful manner. As your seventh house ruler, Jupiter is in the eighth house. Eighth house, as we all know, is ups and downs in life, sudden unexpected ups and downs. So just try to maintain some caution in this area. If we talk about travel, short distance travel, journey, vacation is looking quite good and supportive throughout the month, as well as long distance travel, journey, and vacation is supported as well, and you can certainly embark on the same. So I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Virgo Kanya Rashi friends. I thank you for watching, and
For my Libra Tula Rashi friends, before we get into the prediction part, let us first take a look at the position of planets in the month of December. Starting with Saturn, it will be placed in your fifth house in its own Mool Trikona sign Aquarius. Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your sixth house in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be Ketu, the south node of the moon, placed in your 12th house in the sign of Virgo. Jupiter will be placed in your 7th house in the sign of Aries. Directly opposite, in your ascendant in the first house itself, will be placed the ruler of your sign, Venus. But in the last week of the month, Venus will transit to your second house in the sign of Scorpio and will be in conjunction with Mars. Mars, which rules Scorpio, will be strongly placed in its own sign all month long in your second house. Sun, the king of planets, for the first 2 weeks will be placed in your second house as well, along with Mars. But in the last 2 weeks, it will transit to your third house and will be in conjunction with Mercury, which will be placed there for the most part of the month. But in the last 5 days or so, it will move back to your second house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the important placement and position of planets in the month of December. Now let's discuss the major areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, it is going to be quite a good month because there is no affliction as such to the 10th house, which is connected to your job and profession area. Even the lord of your ascendant, your Lagnesh Venus, will be placed in your first house itself all month long, at least for the first 3 weeks, which indicate your prestige, respect, overall status at your workplace, in society to increase, because Venus is a planet that represents attraction, charm. So naturally, with your hard work, effort, and your charming personality, you will be able to impress your bosses, colleagues, and naturally gain their respect, appreciation, and credit for the hard work that you have been putting in your job. In the last week, Venus will transit to your second house as well, to the Dhanastan, to the wealth house. So quite a good placement. So possible increment in salary, bonus, promotion can also not be ruled out, because If it is long overdue, then it can certainly happen this month. If you don't have a job, I highly recommend keep applying and give tons of interviews, because the planetary alignment is such that it largely supports you to get a new job role. If we talk about the business area, in terms of business, the time is looking excellent moving forward, because the Guru Chandal Dosh in your 7th house is now completely over. Rahu has moved to your 6th house. Jupiter is strongly placed in your 7th house itself. And the ruler of the 7th, Mars, will be placed in its own sign of Scorpio in your 2nd house. So, naturally, increase in revenues, increase in profits from business activities, chances to make new business deals, think of business expansion, implementing new business strategies and tactics to overcome your business competition and rise on top will be some of the things on your mind. If you are in a business partnership, you will start to get more cooperation, respect, support from your business partners. Just try not to get into any arguments on any trivial issues, as that could cause issues in the business relationship. But overall speaking, an excellent time for your business area. If you are thinking of starting a new business, at least the gochar is looking quite positive. Now you will also need to analyze your birth chart, make sure you are running a good Mahadasha, Antardasha, and then you can even think of starting your own new business. If we talk about health, the health area is looking solid throughout the month. No major health issues are foreseen, because Rahu in your 6th house will now give a boost to your immunity. Your energy levels will rise. You will feel fighting fit, and any health issues that were bothering you in the past can be resolved with the appropriate treatment around this time. If we talk about finance, then overall the financial flow is looking quite good as well. Mars in its own sign of Scorpio all month long in your 2nd house. Your Lagnesh Venus also transiting in the last week to your 2nd house. The Lord of your 11th placed in the 2nd, and then the 3rd houses indicate a good inflow of money all month long. The more hard work, self-effort, parakram, bravery, courage you show in your work, in your business, the more money you will naturally attract in your life. If we talk about education, in terms of primary education and secondary education, both areas are looking quite strong for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, or for those students pursuing secondary education such as master's or PhD program. Keep working hard, stay focused on your studies, and you will make really good progress in this month. If we talk about love life, then if you're single, there are chances you might come across compatible people who you might think of getting into a relationship. But just think twice before jumping into a new relationship, because Mars is aspecting your 5th lord Saturn. And as we all know, Saturn and Mars are enemies with each other. Especially Saturn considers Mars as a strong enemy planet. So think twice before making any major decisions connected to the love and romance area. If you're already in a relationship, things will be smooth for the most part, and just try not to get into unnecessary quarrels, disputes, or that could cause a sudden break in the relationship. But if you are caring, loyal, loving, attentive towards your partner, then no issues should arise. If we talk about marriage, for single people hoping to get married, this is an excellent time, because your Lagnesh Venus, which is the natural Karaka of marriage, is aspecting the 7th house, where even Jupiter, Devguru Brihaspati, the other most auspicious planet, is placed. And Jupiter is all about expansion. It is all about good fortune, luck, bhagya, happiness, overall success, destiny rising. So the time is looking quite supportive for marriage related matters for those single people out there looking to find their soulmate. If we talk about married couples, they will experience more bliss, harmony, peace, love, romance, and passion in their married life. So the time is looking quite good for the same. If we finally talk about short distance travel, then the time is looking excellent throughout the month, especially in at least the first 3 weeks. And in terms of long distance travel, journey, and vacation, overall the time is looking quite good in that area as well. In the last 5 days, if you can avoid any major long distance journey, travel, or vacation, it will be good for you. So I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Libra Tula Rashi friends. I thank you for watching and good luck. For my Scorpio Vrishika Rashi friends, before we get into the predictions part, let us first take a look at the position of planets in the month of December, and then we will focus on the major areas of life. Starting with Saturn, it will be placed in your 4th house in its own Mool Trikona, Aquarius. Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your 5th house in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be placed Ketu, the south node of the moon, in your 11th house in the sign of Virgo. Jupiter will be placed in your 6th house in the sign of Aries. Venus will be placed in your 12th house in its own sign of Libra. But in the last week, Venus will transit to your 1st house in the sign of Scorpio itself and will be conjunct with Mars, which is the ruler of your sign, and will be placed there throughout the month. Sun, the king of planets, for the first 2 weeks will be placed in your ascendant itself in the 1st house, but in the last 2 weeks it will transit to your 2nd house in the sign of Sagittarius and will be in conjunction with Mercury. Mercury, for the most part of the month, will be placed in your 2nd house in the sign of Sagittarius. But in the last 5 days or so, it will move back to your ascendant in the 1st house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the position of planets in the month of December. Now let's talk about the areas of life, starting with the career. So in terms of job and profession, it is looking to be an excellent month because your career lord Sun will be for the first 2 weeks placed in your ascendant, and that is a very auspicious place for Sun as it is the east direction where Sun naturally gets a lot of strength, and also it is both a center and a trine house, which makes it even more auspicious. In the second half of the month, it will transit to your wealth house in the friendly sign of Sagittarius, creating a Budh Aditya Yoga with Mercury. So naturally, these positions indicate a lot of good growth, progress, success, a lot of respect, prestige, credit, recognition that you can achieve at your workplace. But just avoid making any sudden hasty decisions connected to your career, because you cannot dismiss that Saturn is also aspecting your career house with its strong enemy aspect. But then you also have Jupiter, which is trying to protect your career house with its aspect as well on your 10th house. So it now depends whether you are running a good Mahadasha, whether you are running a Mahadasha of Shani, for example, then you will have to be more cautious whether it comes to changing jobs, applying for a promotion, applying for a job transfer. In that scenario, you have to think twice before doing so. But if you are running, let's say, Guru Mahadasha, you are running Surya Mahadasha, then the time will be quite supportive for you and you will be able to make solid progress throughout the month. Just stay focused on your job, duties, tasks, work, projects, and try not to get involved in any unnecessary disputes, quarrels, office politics, gossips with your colleagues or upper management, or that can get you in trouble. So just staying focused and working hard will be the way to go for this month. If we talk about business, the business area can be quite good for those people who have a business that is connected to foreign lands, international type of business, because your 7th lord Venus is going to be transiting for at least the first 3 weeks in your 12th house in its own Mool Trikona Libra. So For those people running a business, maybe it might be import, export, or something to do basically with foreign lands, then it can yield good returns. It can give you good profits, increase in revenues. In the last week of the month, it will be even more auspicious for business activities in general, whether you are running business domestically or internationally. It will be suitable both ways. If we talk about health, then the time is looking quite good throughout the month and no issues are foreseen because Jupiter will be strongly placed in your sixth house, and then you have the Lord of your Lagna, Mars, being placed in the first house itself, which will give a boost to your immunity. Your energy levels will remain high. You will feel more robust. Your vitality will increase. You will feel fighting fit. Just make sure to take good care of your health and not neglect any acute health issues if something was to bother you. But overall, no major concerns are foreseen. If we talk about finance, then the financial area is looking solid throughout the month because your Labesh Mercury will be placed in your Dhanastan for the most part of the month, and even Sun will be transiting to your wealth house in the latter half of the month. Jupiter will also be aspecting your second house, which is its own Mul Trikona. So, if you make good financial management, money management decisions, then you can really accumulate good wealth and increase your bank balance and savings during this time period because the financial outlook is looking quite positive and you can achieve more financial stability moving forward as long as you play your cards right. If we talk about education, in terms of primary education, such as those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, the time is looking good as long as you stay focused on your studies, you can make good academic progress. If we talk about secondary education, for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, the time is looking even better. With your hard work, dedication, commitment, you can achieve remarkable progress in your field of study. If we talk about love life, well, now Rahu has entered your fifth house, so there are chances that if you're single, a new person might enter your life. But again, Rahu is a Mayavi planet. It is a planet of illusion, deception. So be basically very diligent and make sure that you properly know the person, the individual, before jumping into a new relationship so that your expectations match reality. For those people who are already in a relationship, the time can be good if you are loyal, caring, loving, attentive towards your partner. You are faithful, because doing anything behind your partner's back can lead to some problematic consequences. So try not to fall prey to any temptations and remain very focused when it comes to your relationship area and stay committed, which will go a long way. If we talk about marriage, then the time is looking quite good for those people wanting to get married, especially marriage to someone who's living in a different country, a foreigner. The time is looking good for that because your seventh lord is in the 12th house in the sign of Libra, which is its own sign. But in the last week of this month, it will be good for even people living in the same country, and marriage related matters will be largely supported. For those people already married, there might be some ups and downs in the relationship in the first 3 weeks, so be cautious and try to not get into unnecessary arguments, disputes, quarrels with your spouse. But in the last week, things will be resolved to a great extent, and once again, you can experience more harmony, bliss, and peace in your married life. But the passion will remain quite high in this month, especially for newly married couples. Um, it can be a very good time for love and romance because of Venus position in the 12th house. If we talk about travel, short distance travel, journey, and vacation can be quite good. Just make sure that you drive your vehicle carefully when embarking on short distance journeys. Do not speed and drive. If we talk about long distance travel, journey, and vacation, the time is looking even better and you can certainly embark on the same. So, I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Scorpio Vrishchik Rashi friends. I thank you for watching and good luck. For my Sagittarius Dhanu Rashi friends, before we get into the predictions, let us first observe the position of planets in the month of December and then we will talk about the major areas of life. Starting with Saturn, it will be placed in your third house in its own sign of Aquarius. Then we see that Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your fourth house in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be placed Ketu in your 10th house in the sign of Virgo. Next, we see that the lord of your Lagna, the ruler of your sign Jupiter, will be placed in your fifth house in the sign of Aries. Directly opposite to Jupiter, in your 11th house, will be placed Venus in its own Mool Trikona Libra for the first 3 weeks. But in the last week of the month, it will transit to your 12th house in the sign of Scorpio and will be in conjunction with Mars. Mars will be placed there basically all month long. For the first 2 weeks, Sun will be placed in your 12th house as well in conjunction with Mars in the sign of Scorpio. But in the last 2 weeks, it will transit to your first house in the ascendant itself in the sign of Sagittarius and will be in conjunction with Mercury, creating the Budh Aditya Yoga. Mercury, for the most part of the month, will be placed in your first house, but in the last 5 days or so, it will move back to your 12th house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the key placement of planets. Now let's talk about the major areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, it is looking to be quite a progressive month for you. With your wit, intelligence, quick thinking, adaptable nature, and strong communication skills, you will be able to achieve decent progress throughout the month because your ruler of your career house, Mercury, is placed in the first house along with Sun, especially in the last 2 weeks, creating the Budh Aditya Yoga. So, naturally, with your quick thinking, sharp, and intelligent decision making, you will be able to really do well on your task, duties, and projects and be able to impress the upper management, which will help you to gain more recognition, respect, and get the credit that you deserve. If you don't have a job, I highly recommend keep applying and give lots of interviews because there is a good chance you might be able to land a new job with a decent salary and benefits package. Just be slightly careful and cautious in the last 5 days of the month when Mercury will move back to your 12th house. Try not to take any sudden major decisions connected to your career in the last 5 or 6 days. If you can avoid that, it will be in your best interest. If we talk about business, again, the business area is also looking quite positive because your business house will be aspected by Mercury itself along with Sun in the last 2 weeks. So it will have quite a positive impact on your business activities. With good business decision making, you will be able to possibly land new deals, think about business expansion, think about implementing new business strategies, and that might help you to overcome your competition and make more profits and increase your revenues. It might also be a good time for business partnerships, especially if your birth chart also supports the same. If you're already in a business partnership, then increase in good business cooperation, understanding, and a good team spirit will be experienced. If we talk about health, then Overall, the health area is looking quite good, especially in the first 3 weeks. No major concerns are foreseen. Even in the last week, the time is looking fine. There might be some medical expenses on the cards, but still, I do not see any major concerns that you need to worry about. Just make sure to take good care of your health. Take your medications on time if you are on medications, and get regular exercise, yoga, meditation, pranayam. All these things will be quite beneficial. If we talk about finance, then the financial area is also looking solid throughout the month, because your inflow of money will be quite positive. Money will definitely be coming your way. Just make sure to properly save that money, because if you are a bit careless about your money management, then it can drain your bank balance. It can deplete your money. Your savings could go down. But if you use good financial money management techniques, then you will be able to actually accumulate good wealth and increase your bank balance in this time period as well. If we talk about education, primary education for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, you will need to really avoid any distractions, because Rahu is present in your fourth house. So avoid distractions so that you can perform well in your studies. If we talk about secondary education for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, the last 2 weeks of the month are looking quite good. So if you need to give any presentations, do any defense, anything important related to your academics, the last 2 weeks will be quite supportive. If we talk about love life, then the time is looking quite good, because Jupiter is in your fifth house now without the affliction of Rahu. So naturally, Jupiter being a planet of expansion can give you a lot of opportunities to meet new people if you're single, and open up the potential for a new relationship. And there is a chance that relationship might be with a person living in a faraway place or a foreign land, because your fifth lord Mars will be in the 12th house. So there might even be some long distance traveling involved in connection to meeting that potential partner. If we talk about couples, if you're already in a relationship, then there will be a lot of passion, love, romance, increase in bed pleasure, because 12th house is connected to bed pleasures. So definitely the increase in pleasurable activities, romance, love is definitely indicated on the cards. If we talk about marriage, for single people hoping to get married, the first 24-25 days are looking quite good. And if your natal birth chart supports the same, you might even be able to get married if you are looking for that. If you are already married, then married couples will experience a lot of bliss, harmony, peace in their married life. If things were not going smooth from the past few months, then it can change for the better. Disputes could be resolved, but you will need to be transparent, and the communication needs to be quite open, and everything has to be upfront so that any pending issues could be resolved. If we talk about travel, short distance travel journeys are going to be moderately supported. Just do not drive your vehicle fast. Try to drive slowly and drive with caution. If we talk about long distance travel journey and vacation, it is looking quite good throughout the month. Just do proper planning, research before you embark on a very long distance journey. But overall, the time is looking quite favorable for the same. So, I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Sagittarius Dhanu Rashi friends. I thank you for watching and good luck. For my Capricorn Makar Rashi friends, before we get into the prediction part, let us first take a look at the position of planets in the month of December, and then we will discuss the major areas of life. Starting with Saturn, the ruler of your sign, the lord of your lagna, will be strongly placed in your second house in its own sign of Aquarius. Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your third house in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be placed Ketu, the south node of the moon, in your ninth house in the sign of Virgo. Jupiter will be placed in your fourth house in the sign of Aries. Directly opposite will be placed Venus in your 10th house in its own sign of Libra. But in the last week of the month, it will transit to your 11th house in the sign of Scorpio and will be in conjunction with Mars, which rules this sign. Mars will be placed in your 11th house for the most part of the month. Sun, for the first 2 weeks, will be placed in your 11th house, but in the last 2 weeks, will transit and will be placed in your 12th house in the sign of Sagittarius along with Mercury. Mercury, for the most part of the month, will be placed in your 12th house, but in the last 5 days, it will move back to your 11th house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the key placement and position of planets in the month of December. Now let's talk about the areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, it is going to be an excellent month. Finally, you are going to experience huge relief because for the last 5-6 months or so, the position of Venus, your career lord, has not been that great. But finally, it is now in its Mool Trikona. Any planet placed in its Mool Trikona gives excellent results. And to add to that, Venus is a Yoga Karaka planet for you, meaning a very beneficial planet as it rules a both center and a trine house. And it is also best friends with the ruler of your sign, Saturn. So any pending promotion, bonus, or a salary increment can happen around this time. Those unemployed people have a high chance of securing a new job opportunity. So I highly recommend those people who don't have a job, keep applying and give lots of interviews because here is your golden chance to finally get a new job opportunity. Those people already employed in a good company will experience good growth, success, new opportunities, whether it is for a job transfer within a different department, job transfer to a new location, any type of promotion, more responsibilities, more leadership type opportunities will come your way. So it is going to be an excellent month for your profession. If we talk about business, then there is no real affliction to the business house. So I will say it will also be quite a good month in terms of business activities. As long as you use good business decision making, you will keep making profits. Try to cut down unnecessary expenses. Make sure that you have a good accounting or finance department who can help you to strategize your budget, and then you can plan accordingly for your long term business goals and vision. Because even Rahu's placement in the third house can really help you to succeed in the business area. If you're in a business partnership, you will get good support, cooperation from your business partner, and you can work mutually together to achieve your long term business goals. Then, if we talk about the love life area, it is going to be quite good as well for single people. There are chances now of meeting someone and possibly getting into a relationship, and the chances are looking strong, especially of meeting people through your career, through maybe if you're working in the same type of field, you're working in a same company, you might start connecting with someone quite well and hitting it off, and you might even start dating because your fifth lord Venus will be strongly placed in the 10th house. So Venus naturally rules love and romance. It is the karaka of that, and in your chart also it rules your fifth house. So the time is looking excellent for love and romance area. Even for those people already in a relationship, you will experience much more passion, love, romance, bliss, harmony, and peace in your romantic life. If we talk about health, then overall there might be some expenses in connection to health area, but as long as you take good care, take your medications on time, do regular exercise, do yoga, meditation, pranayam, breathing exercises, it will be quite positive. Your health will be maintained throughout the month, and I do not see any major concerns. If we talk about finance, then the time is looking solid because the lord of your Dhanastan, Shani, is in the Dhanastan, the lord of your Labastan is in the Labastan, and even your 10th house lord Venus in the last week will transit to your 11th house. Even your Bhagyesh towards the last 5 days will transit to your 11th house. Sun for the first 2 weeks will be placed in your 11th house. So naturally it indicates lot of incoming gains from multiple sources of income, from your past investments. So make sure to save that money, build up your wealth, and naturally that will increase your bank balance and help you to feel more financially stable. But the time is looking excellent in terms of financial gains. Just avoid basically any type of major risky speculative investments because the moon sign people are running Sadesati. So Saturn being a slow moving planet and a planet of discipline, be very disciplined when it comes to your financial management skills and do not throw caution to the wind. If we talk about education, primary education such as those students pursuing bachelor's or high school will make remarkable academic progress going forward because Rahu has now moved out of your fourth house, which is a big relief for these students as they will be able to focus much better and achieve good grades. If we talk about higher education, for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, the time can be a bit tough, but with your hard work and effort, you can still make good progress. The time will be even better for those students living in a foreign land and pursuing their higher education. They can achieve quite good progress as the ninth lord is in the 12th house. And it might be even a good time for those students wanting to get admission to a college in a foreign land. The luck might finally favor them. Then, if we talk about travel, short distance travel journeys are going to be largely supported now. Short distance journeys can be beneficial. In terms of long distance travel journey and vacation, the time is also looking quite positive because your ninth lord Mercury will be placed for the most part in the 12th house, which is connected to foreign lands. So as long as you do the proper planning research, you can certainly embark on long distance journeys, travel and vacation. If we talk about marriage, then the time is looking quite good for single people wanting to get married. The time is looking favorable if you are running a good Mahadasha, Antardasha. I do not see any issues in the same. And married couples already who are in a marriage will experience good bliss, harmony, peace, love, romance in their married life. And as long as they remain faithful, loyal, caring, attentive towards their spouse, then it will be a smooth ride for the most part. So I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Capricorn Makar Rashi friends. I thank you for watching and good luck. For my Aquarius Kumbha Rashi friends, before we get into the prediction part, let us first take a look at the position of planets in the month of December and then we will talk about the major areas of life. Starting with Saturn, the ruler of your sign, the lord of your ascendant, will be strongly placed in the first house itself in its own sign of Aquarius. Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your second house in the sign of Pisces. Directly opposite will be Ketu, the south node of the moon, placed in your 8th house in the sign of Virgo. In your third house, Jupiter will be placed in the sign of Aries. Directly opposite, in your ninth house, Venus will be placed in its own sign of Libra. for the first 3 weeks, but in the last week it will transit to your 10th house in the sign of Scorpio and will be in conjunction with Mars. Mars is the planet which rules Scorpio itself and will be placed there all month long. Sun for the first 2 weeks will be placed in your 10th house in the sign of Scorpio, but in the last 2 weeks it will transit to your 11th house in the sign of Sagittarius and will be in conjunction with Mercury. Mercury, for the most part of the month, will be placed in the 11th house, but in the last 5 days it will transit back or move back to your 10th house in the sign of Scorpio, and those are the key placements for this month. Now let's discuss the major areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, good improvement and progress is seen this month. A much better relief can be experienced in your career area because the Lord of your 10th house, Mars, will now strongly be placed in the 10th house itself, where it becomes Digbali. It gains directional strength. Even it will be in conjunction with Sun. Sun also gets directional strength in the 10th house. So those are very auspicious placements for both these planets. Venus, which is a Yoga Karaka planet for you, will also transit to the 10th house in the last week. You will also have the Bhagya in your full favor and support for the most part, because Venus for the first 3 weeks will be in your Bhagyastan. So overall, the time is looking quite positive for your career. Still, be cautious and do not take sudden major hasty decisions connected to your job, whether it is changing your job, applying for a promotion, bonus, salary increment, applying for a job transfer to a different location, because Saturn's strong enemy aspect on your 10th house cannot be ignored, especially if you are running also the Mahadasha or Antardasha of Saturn. Then you have to maintain more caution. But if you are running a very good Mahadasha, Jupiter Mahadasha, even Mars Mahadasha, which controls your 10th house, Venus Mahadasha, then the time is looking much more favorable for your career area. If you don't have a job, I highly recommend keep applying and give lots of interviews this month, because the time is supportive to a great extent where you might be able to get a new job opportunity. Try not to get into unnecessary arguments, disputes, quarrels with your colleagues at the workplace, as that could cause potential issues, as Saturn is aspecting Mars on the 10th house and even Sun in the first 2 weeks. If we talk about business, then in terms of business area, it will be quite a good month for business activities. You will experience more recognition, more respect, prestige, increase in your overall, you can say, aura in the business community, because Sun, which rules your business house, will be very well placed throughout the month. Even Jupiter will be aspecting your business house. But still, again, Saturn is also aspecting your business house with a strong enemy aspect. So naturally, some due diligence, analysis and research should be done before taking major business decisions. Avoid getting into business partnerships if possible, unless you really know and trust that individual. If you are in a business partnership, try to maintain good cooperation, keep the dialogue open, and maintain transparent communication so that unnecessary misunderstandings do not take place. If we talk about health area, the time is looking excellent throughout the month. No major concerns are foreseen. Your immunity level will be strong. Your energy levels will rise. You will feel more robust. Your vitality will increase. And overall, you will feel fighting fit throughout the month. As the Lord of your Lagna is in the first house itself, your 6th house is not afflicted, and your 8th Lord will also be well placed throughout the month. If we talk about finance, then the time is looking quite good for your financial area as well. You have the Budh Aditya Yoga happening in your in the second half of the month in your 11th house. Rahu is also now placed in your 2nd house, and Rahu is basically a good planet for your Aquarius sign, because Rahu is actually known to co-rule Aquarius, since it is known to act like Saturn. So naturally, Rahu can do wonders for your finances, especially if it is very well placed in your natal chart as well. Just try to control your spending, try to save your money, try to accumulate your wealth so that you can grow your bank balance. Avoid risky speculative investments unless you really know what you're doing, because the moon sign people are under the influence of Sadesati. So try to play it as safe as possible when it comes to your finances. If we talk about education, primary education, for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school, the time is looking excellent and you will make good academic progress. In terms of higher education, for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, the first 3 weeks are looking excellent and you will make remarkable progress with your hard work and effort. Just try not to get distracted by any distractions, or do not get tempted by things that might take away your focus from your studies. But it's a great time overall for you to achieve good success in your field of study. If we talk about love life, then the time is looking quite good, at least for the first 3 weeks, for single people to find a potential partner and possibly even get in a relationship. And couples will experience quite a good time. A lot of love, romance will be in the air, and couples might go on outings, might explore new places, and spend quality time together. If we talk about marriage, in terms of those single people hoping to get married, the time is looking quite positive, especially if you are running a very good Mahadasha, Antardasha, then there are chances single people might even get married this month. If you are running the Shani Mahadasha, Shani Antardasha, then make sure to think twice before getting into a marriage, because Saturn's strong enemy aspect is on the 7th house. So some caution needs to be maintained. Those people already in a marriage, things are looking quite good. You will experience good marital bliss, harmony, peace for the most part. Just try not to get into unnecessary arguments, disputes, quarrels with your spouse, or that could cause a sudden break in the relationship as well, due to the strong enemy aspect of Saturn on your 7th house. But if you are caring, loyal, loving, attentive towards your spouse, and you are faithful, then no issues should arise. If we talk about travel, short distance travel, journey, vacation is looking quite supportive throughout the month, as well as long distance travel, journey, and vacation. You can certainly embark on the same, and the time is looking quite good for both short and long distance travel. So I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Aquarius Kumbha Rashi friends. I thank you for watching and good luck. For my Pisces Meen Rashi friends, before we get into the predictions, let us observe the transits of the planets this month. Starting with Saturn, it will be placed in your 12th house in its own sign of Aquarius. Rahu, the north node of the moon, will be placed in your first house itself in the ascendant. Directly opposite, Ketu, the south node of the moon, will be placed in your 7th house in the sign of Virgo. Jupiter will be placed in your 2nd house in the sign of Aries. Directly opposite will be Venus, placed in the sign of Libra in your 8th house. But in the last week of the month, it will transit to your 9th house in the sign of Scorpio, where Mars, the ruler of Scorpio, will be present all month long. In the first 2 weeks, Sun will be present in your 9th house in the sign of Scorpio along with Mars, but in the last 2 weeks, it will transit to your 10th house in the sign of Sagittarius and will be in conjunction with Mercury. Mercury will basically be placed in your 10th house in the sign of Sagittarius for the most part of the month, but in the last 5 days or so, it will move back to your 9th house in the sign of Scorpio. So these are the key placement and position of the planets in the month of December. Now let's talk about the areas of life, starting with the career. In terms of job and profession, it is going to be an excellent month for you. Especially the last 2 weeks is where you can really achieve, where the sky is the limit, because there will be a Budh Aditya Yog in your 10th house where even Sun will become Digbali. It gains directional strength in your 10th house. And Mercury, being the planet of communication, adaptability, intelligence, will be placed in the 10th. And then you see that Jupiter, the lord of your ascendant, the ruler of your sign, will also be aspecting the 10th house from the second, and that aspect also falls on its Mul Trikona sign Sagittarius itself. All this indicates the month will only keep getting better. It will only progress as the month keeps moving forward. If you need to give any interviews, then try to do it in the last 2 weeks, because you will have the full support of the planets to get a new job opportunity. If you need to apply for a promotion, a bonus, salary increment, job transfer to a different location, then the last 2 weeks will be perfect. So, overall, an extremely auspicious time for the career is indicated this month. If we talk about business area, again, quite a good time. The ruler of your business house, Mercury, will be placed 4 places away from the 7th house in the 10th house. So 10th house is also basically connected to business activities as well. So does the 7th house. So it is going to be a very good time if you use good business decision making, your wit, intelligence, then you can make smart business deals. But do not forget, Ketu is also placed in the 7th house. So do think twice before taking any major business decisions, because Ketu is a rash planet. It is known to act just like Mars. So think twice before taking important decisions, and do not take any hasty decision when it comes to your business activities. If we talk about the health area, then overall the time is looking quite good as long as you take good care of your health, not neglect any acute health issues. If something was to bother you, your health area is looking just fine. Especially if you are running the Shani Mahadasha, then you will have to be a bit more cautious. But if you are running other Mahadashas, like Jupiter, Sun, Mars, Mercury, you should be fine. If we talk about finance, then overall the financial flow is looking quite good. The blockages that Rahu might have created in your 2nd house have now slowly cleared up. The ruler of your Labhasthan is in the Vyastan in the 12th house, so some expenses are indicated, but you can use good decision making to direct those expenses towards the needy causes. You need to prioritize your expenses. But those people living in a foreign land, working in a foreign land, the gains of the money flow is going to be much stronger, and it's going to be more auspicious for you. So overall, a decent outlook for the financial area throughout the month. I just forgot to mention, make sure not to make any risky financial investments, because you are also under the influence of Sadesati for the Pisces moon sign people. So just some words of caution there. If we talk about education, primary education related matters are looking excellent for those students pursuing bachelor's or high school. You will make really good progress and achieve good grades. If we talk about secondary education, for those students pursuing master's or PhD program, will also make good academic progress as long as they put in the hard work and effort, because there will be some pressure on Mars from Saturn. So definitely Saturn being a planet of discipline, hard work, that will need to be translated to your daily life so that you can achieve your academic goals. If we talk about love life, then the time is looking good. No afflictions to your 5th house. So single people can definitely, bank on meeting new people. Hope, keep that positive attitude, because there are chances of meeting potential compatible partners. If we talk about Couples, people already in a romantic relationship, the time is looking good. You will spend a lot of memorable time with your partner, and the love is going to be in the air. If we talk about marriage, for those single people hoping to get married, the time is looking good as well. As long as you make the right decision, you are a good judge of the person you are planning to get married to, because Ketu is in the seventh house. So again, it is a shadow planet. So you need to think twice before getting into a marriage. But overall, if your birth chart supports the same, you're running a good Mahadasha, Antardasha, then the Gochar transit is looking good for marriage related activities. Those people already married, you might feel a sense of isolation at times. So try to maintain good, transparent communication with your partner about the same, so that no unnecessary misunderstandings happen. But overall, still a decent time is indicated for married couples as well. If we talk about short distance travel, then if you can avoid it at least for the first 3 weeks, lot of short distance travel journeys, it will be to your advantage. Long distance travel journey vacation are looking quite good as long as you do the proper planning, research, and analysis before you embark on the same. So I believe I covered all the major areas of life for my Pisces Meen Rashi friends for the month of December 2023. I wish you all the best and good luck.